It all started on a calm Sunday morning, the kind of morning where even the birds sound lazy. Tom, a quiet guy who mostly kept to himself, was standing in his backyard sipping coffee and checking the numbers on his solar power monitor. Everything looked normal until it didn't. A sudden drop, a sharp dip in voltage. Tom frowned. "That's strange," he muttered. See, Tom wasn't just any homeowner. He was a guy who understood every bolt, every wire, every watt running through his house. He had built his custom solar setup with his own hands. It powered his home, his workshop, and even his mini farm. So when something fell off, he knew it instantly. He double-checked the readings. Another drop, this time bigger. Okay, that's not normal at all. He walked toward the fence that separated his yard from Karen's property. Yes, that Karen, the HOA president, the woman who once fined someone for having a garden gnome, the woman who believed every rule existed for her convenience, and the owner of a brand new Tesla. She wouldn't stop bragging about. Tom didn't want problems. He just wanted answers. So he followed the voltage line on his monitor, tracking the pull of electricity like a detective following footprints. The numbers led him toward the fence, then past the fence, then straight into Karen's garage. "No way," Tom whispered, because right there, plugged into Karen's Tesla charger, was a bright orange extension cable, his cable, the one that had been hanging neatly on the side of the fence just yesterday. It was now feeding power directly into her car. Karen had stolen his solar energy, not just borrowed, not accidentally used. Stolen. And the numbers told him she had been doing it for hours. Tom took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe Karen would admit it. Maybe she'd apologize. He knocked. Karen opened the door with her usual fake smile. "Oh, Tom, didn't expect to see you." Tom pointed at the cable. "That's my power line, plugged into your Tesla." For a moment, her smile froze, just a tiny crack. Then she shrugged. "Well, the HOA covers community resources. I just assumed solar counts as community energy." Tom stared at her. "Karen, that's not how anything works." But Karen just rolled her eyes and closed the door. Tom stood there silently. Then he smiled. A slow, dangerous smile. Because Karen had messed with the wrong guy, and she had no idea what he was about to do next. But what exactly was Tom planning? And how far was he willing to go to expose Karen? Tom didn't sleep that night. Not because he was angry. Anger fades. He stayed awake because his mind was working like a machine, calculating, planning, connecting dots. Karen thought she could get away with draining his solar power like it was some free community charger. She thought Tom was just a quiet black guy who wouldn't make trouble. She had no idea who she was dealing with. By sunrise, Tom had already checked every wire, every panel, every battery on his property. Nothing was damaged, but the power logs confirmed it. Karen had pulled enough electricity to run a small event. Her Tesla wasn't just topping off. It was feeding on a system like a leech. Tom sat in his workshop, surrounded by tools, batteries, and screens. He stared at the footage from his security cameras and shook his head. Karen had casually walked into his yard at 1:12 a.m., unplugged his cable, and dragged it into her garage. And she did it like she'd done it before. "Okay, Karen," Tom muttered, leaning back. "You want to play? Let's play." He didn't want revenge. Not yet. First, he wanted proof. Proof that even the HOA couldn't ignore. And Tom had an idea no one would ever expect from a calm, soft-spoken man who loved solar panels more than people. He set up a monitoring loop on his system. A voltage trap. A small, harmless surge that would activate only if someone tried to leech power again. Not enough to hurt anyone, but enough to cause a reaction. Lights flickering, alarms ringing, chargers glitching. And, most importantly, enough to trigger his hidden cameras. A perfect setup. All he had to do was wait. And, of course, Karen didn't disappoint. Around noon, Tom's phone buzzed. Alert. Unauthorized voltage draw detected. Tom smiled and opened the live feed. Karen was in her garage again, plugging his cable into her Tesla, like she owned it. This time she even hummed while doing it. Zero shame. Zero fear. But then it happened. Tom's voltage trap activated. Her garage lights flickered violently. The Tesla Charger flashed red. Karen jumped back like she had touched a ghost. What the? Why is this thing acting weird? Tom hit record. He watched every second, documenting everything. Her confusion, her panic, her reaction to the glitching charger. And then she did the one thing he hoped for. She called the HOA emergency line, complaining that someone keeps sabotaging community power. Community power. Tom almost laughed. He wasn't done yet. Not even close. But what exactly did Tom capture on video? And how would he use it to turn the entire HOA upside down? Tom replayed the footage over and over, each time noticing a new detail. Karen's panicked face, the way she tried to smack the Tesla Charger like it was misbehaving on purpose, the moment she tripped over a paint bucket and blamed cheap HOA flooring. Every second of it was golden, but Tom wasn't rushing. No, he wanted Karen to dig her own hole a little deeper. That's why he waited until the HOA held its weekly meeting. Karen arrived early, looking annoyed and stressed. Her Tesla was only half charged, and she had a whole speech prepared about the mysterious community power instability. She didn't know Tom was already there, sitting quietly in the back, arms crossed, watching her perform. The meeting started slow, noise complaints, parking issues, someone's mailbox getting dented. Karen cut everyone off. "Listen, everyone," she said dramatically, standing in the middle of the room. "We have a serious electrical problem. Something is draining the HOA grid." Tom raised an eyebrow. Grid? There was no HOA grid. But Karen continued, waving papers. "My Tesla nearly got damaged today because someone is sending unstable voltage through the, shared power lines." A few neighbors exchanged confused looks. Tom finally spoke. "Shared power lines? Karen, the only person supplying solar power around here is me." Her jaw clenched. "Exactly. That's the problem. Your system is affecting the entire neighborhood." Tom chuckled softly. "Funny, because according to my logs, you've been using my power." Gasps filled the room. Karen's eyes widened for a split second before she regained her fake confidence. "That's ridiculous, Tom. Why would I take your solar power? The HOA has rules against that." Tom stood up slowly, taking out his phone. "I know. That's why," he tapped the screen. "I brought video." The room fell silent. Karen stiffened. "You wouldn't." "Oh, I absolutely would," Tom replied calmly. He connected his phone to the projector. The screen lit up. Karen sneaking into Tom's yard at night, unplugging the cable, dragging it into her garage. She tried to speak, but Tom raised a hand. "Wait, there's more." He played the footage of the voltage trap activating. Karen jumping, screaming, blaming the charger, yelling that the community power was broken. People tried not to laugh, and failed. Karen's face turned bright red. "This is manipulated. This is illegal. This is..." Tom paused the video. "Karen, do you want me to show the angle from your driveway camera too? Or the one from your side fence? I have those as well." She froze. He had her cornered, and she knew it. But Tom wasn't finished yet, because what he said next would change the entire neighborhood and push Karen into the biggest meltdown of her life. The silence in the room fell heavy, like everyone was holding their breath at the same time. Karen stood frozen, eyes darting around, looking for one friendly face, just one person who might rescue her. But the neighbors she used to boss around were now staring at her, like they were finally seeing the real Karen. Tom took a slow breath, then spoke. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," he said calmly. "I'm here because I want the HOA to understand something. Karen hasn't just been stealing my power, she's been abusing her position." A few heads nodded. Someone whispered, "Finally." Karen snapped back to life. "This is character assassination. I am the president of this HOA." Tom didn't even blink. "Not anymore." Murmurs filled the room. Karen stepped forward. "You can't remove me. I was elected." Tom slid another sheet of paper onto the table. "Actually, we can. And according to HOA bylaws, if the president commits property theft, misuses authority, or endangers neighbors, they can be voted out immediately." A neighbor named Linda stood up. "I second that vote." Another man raised his hand. I third it. Karen spun around. Stop this. I do everything for this community. Tom tilted his head. Do you? Because I also found this. He tapped the projector again. A new clip appeared. Karen telling a contractor to build the HOA for repainting her own living room. Another clip showed her ordering landscapers to trim only her hedges while ignoring everyone else's. And then, the worst one, Karen telling a neighbor she'd fine him for having a messy lawn if he didn't vote for her in the next election. Every face in the room changed. This wasn't just embarrassing. This was corruption. Karen's voice cracked. Turn it off. Tom, please, turn it off. For a moment, Tom almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then he remembered the months of harassment, the unfair fines, the arrogance, and now the theft. He folded his arms. You didn't think anyone would ever hold you accountable, but you messed with the wrong person this time. The HOA vice president, Mr. Collins, stood up. All those in favor of removing Karen as president. Every hand in the room rose. Karen stumbled back like she'd been hit. You can't do this. I run this place. Mr. Collins cleared his throat. Not anymore. Karen's eyes filled with panic. But Tom watched her carefully because he knew something was coming. Karen wasn't the type to walk away quietly. And what she did next would push the conflict beyond anything Tom expected and force him to reveal the last piece of evidence he'd been saving. Karen didn't leave the room. She exploded out of it. She shoved the door open so hard it hit the wall, storming down the hallway like a tornado made of anger and denial. Neighbors whispered behind her, some shocked, some relieved, some secretly enjoying the drama. But Tom knew this wasn't over. He stepped outside just in time to see Karen pacing in the HOA parking lot, frantically talking on her phone. I don't care, she yelled. I'm calling the police. He sabotaged my Tesla. He hacked the HOA system. He's dangerous. Tom sighed. There it was. The last desperate move. Karen hung up and pointed at him like she was casting a spell. You're in serious trouble, Tom. The cops are on their way. Let's see you explain your little tricks to them. Neighbors formed a quiet circle, watching, waiting. Tom kept his voice calm. Karen, I didn't sabotage anything. You stole my power. I protected my property. She scoffed. Try proving that to police. Tom smiled, not smugly, but like a man who already knew the ending of the story. I was hoping you'd say that. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small black device, no bigger than a phone. He tapped it once, and a screen lit up showing timestamp footage. Not from his yard, not from the projector. This was different. Karen, Tom said softly, you know how you brag about your Tesla having every smart feature? Well, one of those features is internal charger diagnostics. And yours recorded every minute of unauthorized power draw, straight from my system. Karen's face went pale. And the best part? Tom continued. The Tesla backup camera recorded the exact moment you plugged in my cable, from inside the garage. He tilted the screen so the neighbors could see. There she was, clear as daylight, plugging in the stolen line, smiling as she did it. Someone in the crowd whispered, She's done. Karen staggered back. No, this is manipulated. This is illegal. This is harassment. But before she could finish, a police cruiser pulled up. The officer stepped out. We got a call about property sabotage. Karen rushed over. Yes, arrest him. The officer looked at her, then at Tom calmly holding the evidence. Tom handed the device over. Everything's recorded. Every detail. The officer reviewed the clips for barely 30 seconds before turning to Karen. Ma'am, you reported the wrong person. Karen's mouth fell open. Neighbors covered their lips, stunned. The officer continued, You'll need to come with me for questioning. Theft of utilities is a criminal offense. Karen shook her head violently. I'm the HOA president. An elderly neighbor corrected her gently. Not anymore. Karen's voice cracked into a scream. You can't do this to me. But she wasn't yelling at the officer, or the neighbors, or even Tom. She was yelling at reality, one she no longer controlled. As she was escorted into the cruiser, Karen locked eyes with Tom. "You'll regret this," she whispered. Tom didn't respond. He didn't need to, because he had caught everything on video. He had told the truth. And finally, the whole neighborhood had seen it too. And for the first time in a long time, Tom walked home with the sun on his face, knowing justice, real justice, had finally hit maximum voltage.